So, how does a country protect itself when nature unleashes its worst? Well, today we're diving into Pakistan's National Disaster Management System. It's a framework that was literally forged from tragedy, and it's all designed to build resilience. Let's get into it.
To really understand how Pakistan deals with disasters today, we have to go back to one single catastrophic event. Back in 2005, a massive earthquake didn't just shake the ground in Kashmir, it completely shattered the country's whole way of responding to emergencies.
And why was this such a big deal? Well, you have to understand, Pakistan's geography and its climate kind of make it a hotspot for pretty much every type of natural disaster you can think of. We're talking powerful earthquakes, massive floods, serious droughts, landslides, the whole shebang. With that constant risk, having a coordinated national response isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely critical.
The sheer scale of the 2005 tragedy was just staggering. More than 75,000 lives were lost. I mean, that's a number that's almost impossible to wrap your head around, but every single one of those represents the heartbreaking human cost of not being prepared. This was the painful wake-up call that the old way of doing things just wasn't going to cut it anymore.
Yeah, what that earthquake really exposed was the total failure of a system that was, pretty much just winging it. Simply showing up after a disaster and trying to manage the damage was clearly not enough. The country needed something totally new, something permanent, professional, and proactive.
And that brings us to the solution. Out of this incredible tragedy and this urgent need, Pakistan created one single federal agency to take the lead, the National Disaster Management Authority, or as we'll be calling it, the NDMA. So, what is the NDMA exactly? Well, its official mission is pretty clear: to be the one lead agency for the entire country that handles the whole spectrum of disaster management. And that means everything, from getting ready before something happens to responding and recovering after it does. It's all coordinated by this one central body.
And you can see how it all unfolded right here. You have the 2005 earthquake, which laid bare all the problems. Then, just 2 years later, in 2007, the NDMA is officially created. And then in 2010, another crucial piece of the puzzle gets put into place: the National Institute of Disaster Management, which was set up to build the expert workforce needed to actually run this new system.
Now, this next part is maybe the most important piece of the whole story. See, creating the NDMA wasn't just about shuffling around some government departments. It was a complete shift in philosophy for the entire country, moving from a state of just reacting to disasters to one of being proactive. So what does that shift actually look like in the real world? Let's break it down. Instead of a messy, ad hoc response, you get systematic planning. Instead of only worrying about what happens after a disaster hits, the focus shifts to getting prepared before it ever does. And, crucially, the entire goal changes from just damage control to actually reducing the risk in the first place.
Right at the heart of this proactive approach is this really incredible state-of-the-art facility, the National Emergencies Operations Center, or the NEOC. The best way to think about it is like the high-tech brain of the entire operation, designed specifically to keep Pakistan one step ahead of whatever crisis is coming next.
So, how's it work? Well, the team at the NEOC is on the job 24/7. They are constantly tracking global weather patterns, looking at local hazards, figuring out what the impacts might be, and analyzing all that data for emerging threats. The goal is always the same: step in before a situation becomes a full-blown crisis.
Of course, a high-tech brain is only as good as the people running it, and that's where the National Institute of Disaster Management, the NIDM, comes into play. It's the national think tank, it's the training academy. It's responsible for creating that skilled workforce, doing the research, and developing the policies that make the whole system tick.
Okay, so we've talked about the structure, we've talked about the philosophy, but what does all of this look like on a day-to-day basis? Let's dive into some real-world examples of how the NDMA actually works.
Okay, check this out. This is a perfect example. It's a real advisory put out by the NDMA. See how specific and clear it is? It's forward-looking, warning people about increasing smog. This is what being proactive looks like in practice, getting the right information to the people who need it before it becomes a problem.
And it's not just about short little warnings. The NDMA puts out these incredibly detailed, data-heavy reports. For instance, during monsoon season, you might see them release report after report, all the way up to something like Consolidated Situation Report number 87. That insane level of detail is what makes a truly coordinated national response even possible.
Now, a really key piece of this puzzle is that the NDMA doesn't do any of this alone, in some kind of bubble. It's the central hub for a massive web of collaboration. That means working with international groups like the UN, coordinating with regional military partners, and even bringing in private companies. It really does take a network to build a national shield.
So all of this leads to the ultimate end game, which is way bigger than just handling any one disaster. It's about building a country that is fundamentally more resilient for the long haul, especially as climate threats continue to grow.
And the strategy to get there has a lot of moving parts. It's not just about planning, it's about paying for that plan. This means things like creating a financial roadmap, developing projects that can actually attract investment, tapping into international climate funds, and even creating new financial tools with the state bank. It's all about making resilience an investment, not just another expense.
So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The NDMA's mission has totally evolved. It's not just about responding to emergencies anymore. The real goal here is to weave a culture of preparedness into the very fabric of the nation, from the highest levels of government all the way down to every single community.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question for the future, right? As climate change makes these threats even more intense for all of us, what's the next step for organizations like the NDMA? And just how important is global collaboration going to be in building a safer world? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.